Chapter 1. The Stillness Hallucination. Right now, you are breaking the sound barrier. You cannot feel it, because the room you are sitting in is lying to you. Put your hand flat on the table and try to feel the motion of the house. The floor seems calm, the walls are silent, and a glass of water beside you does not slide away. Your muscles, your skin, and your balance report that you are resting in an absolute, immovable foundation. You trust this stillness. You rely on it to maintain your physical balance and your psychological sanity. But this feeling is nothing more than a biological hallucination. The strange part is not only that you are moving fast, the strange part is that the motion is so complete, so shared, and so deeply built into your environment that your body calls it stillness. This is confirmed science, not speculation. The floor beneath your feet is currently turning, falling, and being carried by a star that is itself sweeping around the center of a galaxy. Yet, your heartbeat remains calm. To understand the terrifying depth of this sensory deception, we have to look at how the human body actually interacts with the physical world. We believe our senses provide us with a faithful map of reality, but the truth of human anatomy is that your body is completely incapable of detecting constant speed. Your body is a change detector, not a speed detector. Think of a smooth train with the windows covered. For a while, you may not know whether the train is stopped or moving at 100 miles an hour. A phone lying on the seat beside you does not fly backward just because the train is traveling quickly. Your body only notices when the train jolts, brakes, or turns. This is due to a fragile mechanism buried deep within the dark, bone-encased labyrinth of your skull. Inside your inner ear, there are microscopic structures filled with fluid. These sensors act like a biological alarm system, monitoring how your mass shifts through space. When you lurch or stumble, the fluid sloshes, sending electrical signals to your brain. It is a primitive tool designed for survival on the prehistoric plains of Earth, warning you when you lose your footing or a predator lunges. But this alarm system has a fatal, built-in blind spot. When you are moving smoothly at a constant, unchanging rate, the fluid settles. The sensors have nothing to report. In the absence of a warning signal, your brain simply assumes that you have stopped. It invents stillness. This is more than a passive lack of information. Your brain is an aggressive, ruthless editor. To keep you from shattering under the weight of the universe's sensory input, your consciousness tunes out everything that is constant and predictable. Just as you tune out the rhythmic mechanical hum of a refrigerator or the distant drone of traffic, your brain categorizes the staggering velocity of the cosmos as background noise. It has erased the motion from your conscious reality to keep you from becoming paralyzed by the sheer chaotic velocity of the void. If you enjoy these kinds of deep investigations into the hidden mechanics of our reality, subscribe now. The investigation into the layers of this sensory lie begins here. The first layer of this lie is the ground itself. You press your feet into the floorboards and feel a sense of absolute certainty, but the entire surface beneath you is turning. Because of the Earth's vast size, the outer edges of its rotation are forced to move incredibly fast to complete a single revolution in 24 hours. If you are near the equator, the surface of the Earth is whipping around at approximately 1,670 kilometers per hour. To put that number into context, that is roughly 460 meters covered every single second. In the time it took you to read that last sentence, you have been thrown nearly 3 kilometers eastward. That is faster than the speed of a commercial jet at cruising altitude. You are a passenger on a planetary centrifuge, yet you do not feel the agonizing rush of wind. This is because the stillness is a local treaty. The floor turns with you, the chair turns with the floor, and the walls, the trees, and the oceans all share the same broad motion. You are not being dragged across a stationary Earth. You are part of the turning Earth. You and everything you can perceive are trapped within a closed system, moving together. Consider the sheer, terrifying fragility of this arrangement. Even the air you breathe is a captive part of this motion. The atmosphere is nothing more than a thin fluid membrane of gas, held to the rock by the crushing tether of gravity. The only reason you do not experience a constant, apocalyptic wind is that the air perfectly matches the 1,670 km/h speed of the solid rock beneath it. If the atmosphere were to suddenly slip, if the grip of gravity faltered even slightly and the air stopped rotating with the crust, the result would be instantaneous global annihilation. Supersonic winds would scour the surface of the planet, stripping away forests and shattering cities. We are effectively living inside a high-speed wind tunnel, where the air is moving so fast it feels entirely still. We watch the sun rise and find a romantic beauty in the cycle of dawn. But that is the second layer of the hallucination. The sun is not rising. You are watching a rotisserie blindly turning you toward a nuclear fire and then away. Morning arrives because the planet has relentlessly rotated your location out of the freezing shadows and thrust your body directly into the irradiated gaze of a star. You are a microscopic speck of biological matter pinned to the side of a massive spinning boulder by the invisible hand of gravity, entirely at the mercy of physical forces that could obliterate you if they stuttered. And yet this supersonic carousel is only the smallest, slowest motion you are currently experiencing. While the Earth spins, it is also doing something else. It is falling. At this exact moment, you are part of a high-speed projectile screaming through a cosmic vacuum at a velocity that shatters human intuition. The floor is not a foundation. It is a surface on a falling rock. And we are just beginning to measure the depth of the drop. Chapter 2. The Supersonic Carousel. To find the first true crack in the illusion of stillness, we have to zoom out. Imagine leaving the quiet sanctuary of your room and rising vertically, passing through the ceiling, the clouds, and finally the thin blue haze of the atmosphere until you are hovering in the silent blackness of the near-Earth void. From this vantage point, the sensory lie of the floorboards disappears. You are no longer looking at a stationary landscape. You are looking at a planetary centrifuge. The Earth beneath you is not merely a rock. It is a massive, rotating sphere of iron and silicate, and its motion is anything but gentle. Because the Earth is so physically immense, spanning roughly 40,000 kilometers around its middle, the outer edges of its rotation are forced to move with a violence that shatters human intuition. If you are standing anywhere near the equator right now, the surface of the planet is whipping around its axis at approximately 1,670 kilometers per hour. This is confirmed science, not speculation. To humanize that number, you have to translate it into the seconds of your life. 1,670 kilometers per hour means that the ground beneath your feet is covering roughly 465 meters every single second. In the time it takes for your heart to beat once, you have been thrown nearly half a kilometer eastward. In the time it takes to blink, you have crossed the length of several football pitches. This is faster than the speed of a commercial jet at cruising altitude. If you were on a plane moving at this velocity, you would see the landscape below blur into a streak of green and blue. You would hear the roar of engines fighting the air. But on the surface of the Earth, the silence remains. Your coffee does not ripple. Your hair does not blow. You are sitting on a supersonic carousel, yet you feel as if you are anchored to the center of the universe. The reason for this sensory silence is the local treaty of shared motion. You do not feel the 465 meters per second because you are not being dragged across the Earth. You are part of the Earth. The chair you are sitting in, the air in your lungs, the water in the pipes beneath your street, everything you can see or touch is locked into the exact same terrifying momentum. There is no relative motion, no friction, and no disagreement between your body and its environment. In the realm of physics, speed by itself is invisible. Only change has a voice. But even though you cannot feel it, the forces involved are staggering. We must confront the invisible mechanic that keeps this supersonic rotation from flinging you into the void, gravity. We often think of gravity as a gentle weight, but in the context of a spinning planet, it is a relentless crushing tether. The Earth's rotation creates a centrifugal force that is constantly trying to discard you, to spin you off the crust like a drop of water off a wet tire. You are only still because the mass of the planet is pulling you toward its center with a force that aggressively overpowers your sideways momentum. You are not a resident peacefully dwelling on a world. You are a captive plastered to the hull of a centrifuge by an unseen, uncaring force of mass. The true fragility of this arrangement becomes clear when you look at the air. The atmosphere is nothing more than a thin, fluid membrane of gas held to the rock by that same gravitational grip. It rotates with the planet, perfectly synchronized with the speed of the solid crust beneath it. This is the only reason you do not experience a constant, apocalyptic wind. If the Earth's rotation were to suddenly stutter, if the solid ground stopped for even a microsecond while the atmosphere kept its momentum, the result would be instantaneous global annihilation. The air you are breathing right now would instantly become a supersonic wall of wind, moving at 1,670 kilometers per hour. This would not be weather, it would be a planetary-scale sandblaster capable of stripping forests from the soil and shattering cities into dust in a heartbeat. You are currently living inside a high-speed wind tunnel, and the only thing keeping you safe is the flawless mathematical consistency of the ride. This rotation also reshapes your entire concept of time. We watch the sun rise and find a romantic beauty in the cycle of dawn, but that is the second layer of the hallucination. The sun is not rising. You are watching a rotisserie blindly turning your geographic location out of the freezing shadows and thrusting your body directly into the irradiated gaze of a star. Morning is not a celestial event. It is the physical consequence of being carried into the light at supersonic speeds. The speed of your captivity even changes depending on where you stand. If you move toward the poles, the circle you trace each day becomes smaller and your velocity drops. A person at the equator is being thrown through space much faster than a person in the Arctic, yet both feel equally still. The planet does not give every person the same rotational speed, yet the brain edits out these discrepancies to maintain your psychological sanity. As you sit there, try to hold this image in your mind. You are a microscopic speck of biological matter pinned to the side of a massive spinning boulder by the invisible hand of gravity. You are breaking the sound barrier every second of every day, entirely at the mercy of physical forces that could obliterate you if they hesitated for a single moment. And yet, as terrifying as this supersonic spin is, it is merely the smallest and slowest motion you are currently experiencing. While the Earth spins on its axis, it is also doing something else. It is falling. At this exact moment, you are part of a high-speed projectile screaming through a cosmic vacuum at a velocity that shatters human intuition. The floor is not a foundation, it is the surface of a falling rock, and we are just beginning to measure the depth of the drop. Chapter 3. The Eternal Fall. The supersonic carousel of the Earth's rotation is only the first layer of the deception. To find the next crack in the illusion of stillness, we must zoom out even further, past the blue haze of the atmosphere and into the orbital plane. From here, the sensory lie of the floorboards becomes even more unstable. You are not just spinning on a planetary axis. You are currently a passenger on a high-speed projectile, screaming through a vacuum at a velocity that shatters human intuition. This is confirmed science, not speculation. While you sit in your chair, the entire Earth is orbiting the Sun at an average speed of 107,000 kilometers per hour. To understand what that number actually means for your life, you have to translate it into the seconds of your existence. 107,000 kilometers per hour means that every single second the planet moves 30 kilometers along its path. In the time it takes you to blink, you have been thrown the length of a city. In the time it takes to take a single breath, you have been violently carried across a distance that would take hours to drive. If you could travel in a straight line at this orbital speed, you could cross the entire width of the Earth in only a few minutes. Yet, as you sit there, no morning feels like a 30-kilometer-per-second plunge. You wake up, find your slippers, and walk to the kitchen, and nothing in the hallway suggests that you are part of a planetary fall. This is the first true complication of our cosmic flight. We have been conditioned by childhood textbooks to view the Earth's orbit as a neat circle drawn on a flat page, an elegant, passive drift through the heavens. The diagram is a lie. There is no rail in space. There is no circular groove in the fabric of reality holding the planet in place. An orbit is not a state of restful circling. It is a state of continuous falling and missing. To understand the terrifying mechanics of this, you have to look at the physics of a throw. If you were to stand on a high place and throw a stone horizontally, gravity would pull it down, and it would strike the ground a short distance away. If you threw it harder, it would travel further before hitting the Earth. But if you could throw that stone at a specific, staggering speed, a strange geometric paradox occurs. As the stone falls toward the Earth, the surface of the Earth curves away beneath it. The stone continues to fall, but because its sideways momentum is so great, it keeps missing the ground. It is caught in a perpetual state of dropping toward a floor that is constantly receding. This is exactly what the Earth is doing right now. We are falling toward the Sun, and we are moving sideways fast enough to miss it every single second. The fall never completes, the miss never ends, but there is an existential weight to this balance that the school diagrams omit. We often think of the Sun as a benevolent provider of light, a celestial lamp nailed to the center of our system. In reality, you are gravitationally chained to a raging, chaotic nuclear furnace. The Sun is a monstrous, unimaginably massive sphere of churning plasma and explosive radiation, actively consuming itself in an apocalyptic chain reaction. The horror of our situation is that our survival depends on a precarious mathematical compromise. Our high-speed sideways momentum is the only thing preventing our planet from being pulled into that furnace. We are essentially living on the razor's edge of a cosmic inferno. If our sideways velocity were to slow down by even a fraction, if our 30-kilometer-per-second momentum faltered for even a moment, the crushing gravitational pull of the solar mass would instantly overpower us. We would begin a lethal spiral inward. We would be completely incinerated and vaporized long before we ever touched the surface of the star. On the other hand, if we gained too much speed, the invisible gravitational tether would snap, and we would be hurled outward into the pitch-black freezing depths of the interstellar void, destined to freeze as a dead rogue planet. You are a hostage to this speed. Every traffic light you wait at, every message you type on your phone, and every quiet walk you take happens while the Earth drops around this furnace at a velocity no animal could ever feel directly. Your bones are not pressed backward because the air, the oceans, the floor, and everything you touch are falling with you. You are like a passenger on a boat carried by a broad, fast-moving river. You can walk normally on the deck because the deck is being carried by the same current. This does not make the motion unreal, it makes the stillness local. Local stillness is not a lie, but it is a very narrow truth that only works because of the agreement of nearby things. Inside your room, the table is still relative to the floor. Your hand is still relative to the table. This is a true kind of stillness, but it is not the whole truth. The moment you choose the sun as your reference, the room is no longer a foundation, it is a moving pocket on a falling rock. We mistake this shared motion for rest because our lives are short and the scale is so immense. Biology is practical. It has edited your reality down to the scale of your survival. Your nervous system needs to know if your foot slips on wet tile. It has no need to know that you are currently plunging around a star at 107,000 kilometers per hour. This blindness is not a flaw. It is a mercy that allows you to maintain your psychological sanity while hurtling through a void. But even this eternal fall is not the final word, because while we are falling around the sun itself is not a stationary anchor. The center we have been using to measure our speed is itself screaming through the dark. It is not just moving, it is carrying us into a region of the galaxy we have never occupied before. The investigation into the deeper layers of this motion continues in the next chapter. Chapter 4. The Solar Vortex. While the eternal fall of our orbit feels like a stable, repeating cycle, it is time to confront the most deceptive image of your childhood, the flat map of the solar system. In every textbook you ever opened, the sun was depicted as a stationary golden anchor, sitting peacefully at the center of a series of neat, concentric rings. It looked like a mechanical toy, an elegant, closed system where the planets simply traced the same tracks over and over again. The diagram is a lie. The sun is not standing still, and the tracks do not exist. The sun is not a stationary lighthouse, it is a speeding bullet. It is a massive, raging nuclear furnace that is currently tearing through the uncharted abyss of the Milky Way, dragging our entire world along with it. While you sit in your chair believing that you are merely circling a fixed center, the entire solar system is hurtling through the galactic arm at a blistering speed of approximately 828,000 kilometers per hour. This is confirmed science, not speculation. To humanize a number of this magnitude, you have to look at the seconds of your life. 828,000 kilometers per hour means that every single second, the sun, and you along with it, covers roughly 230 kilometers. In the literal blink of an eye, you have been thrown across the length of a small country. In the time it takes to read this sentence, you have traveled further than many people will drive in a month. This velocity transforms the very geometry of your existence. Because the sun is moving forward at this staggering speed, the Earth's orbit can never truly close back on itself. Instead of a peaceful, repeating circle, our planet's path is violently stretched out into a continuous advancing spiral. We are essentially perpetual cosmic refugees, moths corkscrewing wildly around a speeding bullet as it plunges into the dark. This is the deeper complication. The circle is a fantasy. Every time you celebrate a new year, you take comfort in the idea that you have returned to the same starting point. But in the physical reality of the void, you have never returned to the same place twice. You have returned to the same relative position alongside the sun, but the sun itself has dragged you hundreds of millions of miles away from where you were exactly 1 year ago. You are always somewhere completely new. The space you occupied a minute ago is gone forever, left behind in the freezing, irradiated wake of our galactic flight. We must now address the lore of this journey, the terrifying reality of being a cosmic refugee. We tend to assume that the space between stars is an empty, harmless vacuum, but the galaxy is a chaotic, turbulent ocean. It is filled with interstellar dust clouds, rogue asteroids, and violent invisible radiation fields. Because we are moving at 230 kilometers per second into regions of space we have never occupied before, we are essentially invading uncharted and potentially hostile territory. The only reason this 828,000 km/h galactic friction does not incinerate our planet is a piece of cosmic architecture called the heliosphere. Our Sun is actively carving a protective bubble through the galactic medium, a natural warp shield that deflects the abrasive, irradiated dust of the Milky Way. We survive only because we are huddled inside this invisible magnetic membrane, riding the wake of a star that acts as our primary defense against the void. If the Sun were to move into a denser cloud of cosmic debris, or if our warp shield were to falter for even a microsecond, we would have zero warning. We are hurtling forward without a windshield, entirely dependent on the Sun's apocalyptic momentum to clear the path. The utter silence of this journey is its greatest deception. You do not feel the violent, invisible tether hauling you through the galactic disk because the ride is so massive and so mathematically constant that your body categorizes it as background noise. Your nervous system is tuned to the scale of your survival, to the stumble on a staircase or the lurch of a car, but it is blind to the 828,000 km/h drag of the stars. Try to hold this image in your mind. The quiet room you are sitting in is not a foundation. It is a temporary arrangement of matter currently being thrown across the galaxy. The floorboards, the walls, and your very bones are part of a high-speed projectile that is never permitted to stop and never allowed to return. You are not a resident of a stable world. You are a passenger on a runaway train with no tracks, comforting yourself with the lie that you haven't even left the station. We have spent millennia building civilizations, waging wars, and making plans, all while blindly trusting the silent, uncaring mechanics of this galactic spiral. We treat our address in the universe as if it were written in permanent ink, but we are trespassers, constantly breaking into new cosmic territory at a velocity that defies human sanity. And yet, as staggering as this solar vortex is, it is only one layer of the hierarchy. While the Sun carries us through the galaxy, we must ask, where is the galaxy itself going? Because even the Milky Way, with its hundreds of billions of stars and its dark, sweeping arms, is not at rest. It is part of an even larger, even faster current, a gravitational sinkhole that is dragging our entire corner of the universe toward a destination we can never see. The investigation into the next layer of our flight begins in the next chapter. Chapter 5. The Galactic Year, 230 million year lap. While the solar vortex carries us at staggering speeds, we must ask, how did we ever come to know this? For centuries, the Sun was the ultimate anchor, the stationary heart of a clockwork universe. But the history of astronomy is a series of forced relocations, and the story of how we discovered our 230 million year orbit is a testament to human persistence against the limits of our own senses. This is confirmed science, not speculation. The first real crack in the stationary sun model was not found by a professional physicist, but by a musician with an obsession. In the late 18th century, William Herschel, a music teacher from Bath, began building telescopes by hand that far outperformed anything in the world. He and his sister Caroline did not just look at the sky, they performed a manual labor of science that defies modern patience. They began counting the stars. Imagine trying to map an entire forest by standing in one spot and counting every leaf you see through a narrow tube. Herschel sliced the sky into thousands of tiny blocks and counted the density of stars in each one, block by block, night after night. Measured directly, a stunning picture emerged. he realized that the stars were not scattered infinitely in a random fog. They formed a structured, flat disk. This was the first map of our galaxy. Herschel believed the Sun was near the center of this disk. He was wrong about our address. Interstellar dust was like a thick fog blocking his view of the true edges, but he had proved for the first time that we live inside a structured system. If the Milky Way has a shape, it must have a center. And if it has a center, then everything in it, including our star, must be in motion. This brings us to the second complication. If the entire galaxy is moving, how do you judge what is still? In the mid-20th century, a Dutch astronomer named Jan Oort began looking at the sky not as a map, but as a river. Oort was a man of quiet, cautious numbers. He stopped just looking at where the stars were and started measuring their proper motions, the tiny, microscopic annual displacements of stars across the sky. He found that the stars near our Sun were not moving in a straight line, nor were they rotating like the rigid spokes of a wheel. Oort discovered something called differential rotation. This is a technical term for a very simple, terrifying reality. The Milky Way is a giant gravitational whirlpool. In a whirlpool, the water near the center spins much faster than the water at the edges. Oort calculated that our Sun is located about 25,000 to 30,000 light-years from the center of the galaxy, and to maintain its position, it must be racing around the core at a terrifying speed of approximately 828,000 kilometers per hour. This is established fact published in peer-reviewed literature. To humanize that number, you have to look at your own heart. At 230 kilometers per second, in the time it takes your heart to beat just once, our entire solar system has been thrown through the galactic medium for a distance that would take you over 2 hours to drive on a highway. Yet, because the Milky Way is so incomprehensibly vast, spanning over 100,000 light-years, even this apocalyptic speed results in a journey that takes an eternity by human standards. It takes our Sun roughly 230 million years to complete just one single lap around the galactic center. We call this a galactic year. To feel the existential weight of this, you have to look at the Earth's history as a series of laps. One galactic year ago, the world you are standing on was unrecognizable. You were not in this neighborhood of space. The last time the Sun was in this exact physical coordinate of the galaxy, dinosaurs were just beginning to walk the Earth. It was the Triassic period. The Atlantic Ocean did not exist. The continents were still fused together into the supercontinent of Pangaea. The stars you see in the sky tonight did not form the constellations you recognize. They were in entirely different arrangements, or they hadn't even been born yet. Since the dawn of human civilization, we have traveled only a microscopic fraction of a single galactic orbit. Every war ever fought, every language ever spoken, and every empire that has risen and fallen has happened while the Sun moved only a tiny, imperceptible arc of its long road. We mistake the sky for a permanent canopy because our lives are too short to notice the curve. This is not speculation. It is the data of deep time. We are like mayflies, born on a moving train, living our entire lives between 2 clicks of the wheels and convincing ourselves the train is a stationary house. The horror of the galactic year is that it reveals our absolute displacement. We often celebrate the new year as a return to a starting point, but in the context of the galaxy, there is no return. You have returned to the same spot relative to the Sun, but you are now hundreds of millions of kilometers away from where you were last January. You are always somewhere new. You are a perpetual cosmic refugee, corkscrewing through an irradiated dark that your species has never occupied before. As we move through this 230 million year lap, we are not just circling a center. We are being carried into new regions of the galaxy where the density of stars changes, where the radiation levels shift, and where the weather of the interstellar medium is unknown. We have built our cities and made our plans while blindly trusting that the next 230 kilometers of the journey will be as safe as the last. But as we zoom out even further, the scale of our flight breaks once again, because while the Milky Way rotates, it is not an isolated island. It is part of a larger, even more aggressive current. Our galaxy, with its hundreds of billions of stars and its central black hole, is itself falling toward a destination we can never see, hidden behind a veil of cosmic dust. The investigation into the invisible architect of our flight begins in the next chapter. Chapter 6. The invisible 1.4 million miles per hour drift. While the 230 million year lap of our galaxy feels like the ultimate scale of motion, we must now peel back a deeper, more unsettling layer of the cosmic lie. For a long time, astronomers believed the Milky Way was a solitary island, a self-contained system spinning in a lonely void. But the truth is far more chaotic. Your home galaxy is not an island. It is a member of a small, tight-knit gravitational family called the Local Group. This group, consisting of the Milky Way, the massive Andromeda galaxy, and about 50 smaller companions, is currently locked in a desperate, high-speed struggle. This is confirmed science, not speculation. We are not just drifting, we are being pulled. While you sit in your chair, the entire Local Group is sliding down a cosmic gravitational sinkhole at a velocity that makes our orbital speeds look like a crawl. We are currently racing toward a mysterious region of space at approximately 600 kilometers per second. To humanize that number, you have to look at the immediate physical world around you. 600 kilometers per second means that in the time it takes for your heart to beat just once, you and everything you have ever known have been thrown across a distance equivalent to the entire width of a small country. In the time it takes to blink, you have covered 600,000 meters. If you could travel at this speed on Earth, you could fly from London to New York in less than 10 seconds. Yet, as you sit there, your glass of water remains perfectly still. This motion is known as a coherent collective flow. We are not moving randomly. We are part of a massive, invisible river of galaxies, all draining toward the same destination. This destination has a name that sounds like something out of a horror novel, the Great Attractor. The Great Attractor is a gravitational leviathan, a concentration of mass so immense that it is warping the trajectory of every galaxy within hundreds of millions of light years. But here is the most terrifying part of the lore. We are flying blind. To see the Great Attractor, we would have to look directly through the heart of our own galaxy, but the Milky Way is filled with thick, impenetrable clouds of gas and interstellar dust that block our view of the deep universe beyond. Astronomers call this the zone of avoidance. We are being dragged at 2.1 million kilometers per hour toward a destination we physically cannot see. It is as if you are in a car accelerating toward a massive wall in total darkness with no headlights and no way to hit the brakes. This is not speculation. It is what the data says. We only know the Great Attractor exists because we can measure the tug it exerts on the galaxies we can see. We see them sliding toward a specific point in the sky, caught in the same current as us. We are measuring the depth of a hole by watching the way the nearby water swirls. But this raises the first true complication of the deep universe. If everything is moving, how do we know our true speed? When you measure the speed of a car, you measure it relative to the road. When you measure the speed of the Earth, you measure it relative to the sun. But in the deep void, there is no road. There is no universal floor. To find our ultimate speedometer, We have to look past the stars, past the galaxies, and back to the very beginning of time itself. We have to look at the cosmic microwave background, or the CMB. The CMB is the ghost of the Big Bang. It is a faint, cold afterglow of ancient light that fills every cubic centimeter of the universe. It is the oldest light we can measure, dating back to a time when the universe was only 380,000 years old. Because this light is everywhere and comes from every direction simultaneously, it provides the closest thing to an absolute reference frame that the laws of physics allow. Measured directly, a stunning and unsettling pattern emerges. When we point our most sensitive instruments at the sky, we find that the CMB is not perfectly uniform. One side of the sky appears very slightly warmer, while the opposite side appears very slightly cooler. This is not because the early universe was lopsided, it is because of our motion. This is the dipole anomaly. Because we are moving so fast, we are literally running into the ancient light in one direction, compressing the waves and making them appear hotter. In the opposite direction, we are running away from the light, stretching the waves out and making them appear cooler. By measuring this temperature shift, we can calculate our absolute velocity against the fabric of the universe itself. The result is staggering. The solar system is moving at 2.1 million kilometers per hour relative to the cosmic microwave background. This is the ultimate speedometer. This number includes our rotation, our orbit around the sun's flight through the galaxy, and our galaxy's plunge toward the great attractor. It is the final, total sum of our motion. At 600 kilometers per second, we are traversing the void at a rate that shatters any remaining sense of earthly stability. Try to hold this image in your mind. You are sitting in a room that feels like a permanent foundation, but that room is a tiny pocket of matter pinned to a rock, which is falling around a star, which is screaming through a galaxy, which is being dragged toward an invisible gravitational monster, all while being bathed in the irradiated embers of the Big Bang. You feel nothing because the agreement of nearby things is so perfect. The local treaty of stillness is so convincing that you can live an entire life without ever noticing that you are a cosmic projectile moving at 2.1 million kilometers per hour. But as we look at this ultimate speed, we find the deepest complication yet. Because while we are moving toward the great attractor, the space behind us is also doing something strange. We are not just being pulled, we are being pushed. On the opposite side of our flight path lies an even more mysterious region of nothingness, a vast, underdense void called the dipole repeller. We are being expelled from an empty tomb and dragged toward a hidden leviathan. And as we move, the very fabric of the room we are traveling in, space itself, is beginning to stretch. The investigation into the tearing fabric of the universe begins in the next chapter. Chapter 7. The Ghost of the Big Bang, the Ultimate Speedometer. At this exact moment, you are swimming through the oldest light in existence. You cannot see it and you cannot feel it, but it is currently bombarding every square centimeter of your skin. Even as you sit in your quiet room, believing yourself to be at rest, you are being bathed in a faint, cold radiation that has been traveling across the void for over 13 billion years. This is the cosmic microwave background, or the CMB. This is confirmed science, not speculation. To understand the terrifying velocity of your current flight, we have to look past the stars and the galaxies and find the only thing in the universe that stays still enough to act as a floor. We need a universal parking lot. But because the universe does not provide a physical road, we have to use a ghost. In plain English, the cosmic microwave background is the afterglow of the early universe. It is a relic from a time before the first star was ever ignited, and before the first galaxy ever formed. To understand why this light matters to your current speed, you have to imagine a time when the entire universe was a different kind of place. 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the universe was not a dark, empty void. It was a hot, dense, glowing mist of plasma. Light could not travel through it. It was like being inside a thick, irradiated fog where photons were constantly bouncing off charged particles, unable to escape. But then the universe cooled. The fog cleared. In a single, massive, cosmic moment, the universe became transparent, and that first burst of light was finally set free to travel forever. That light is still here. As the universe expanded over billions of years, that white-hot glow was stretched and cooled until it became invisible to our eyes, shifting into the microwave spectrum. It now fills every cubic centimeter of space, coming from every direction simultaneously. Because it comes from the very fabric of the early universe itself, it provides the closest thing to an absolute reference frame that the laws of physics will ever allow. To understand how we use this light to measure your speed, imagine you are a passenger on a ship in total darkness. There are no stars, no moon, and no landmarks. You cannot see the water, and the ride is so smooth that your body tells you the ship is stationary. But then you notice a faint, uniform glow in the fog surrounding the ship. If the ship is truly still, the glow will look exactly the same in every direction. But the moment the ship begins to move, the light changes. As you race forward, you run into the glow ahead of you, compressing the light waves and making them appear slightly brighter and warmer. Behind you, you are running away from the light, stretching the waves out and making them appear slightly dimmer and cooler. By measuring that tiny difference in the fog, you can calculate exactly how fast the ship is drifting through the dark. This is what the data says. When we point our most sensitive instruments at the sky, we do not see a perfectly even glow. We see the dipole anomaly, a technical term for a simple, staggering reality. One side of the sky is warmer and the other is cooler. This is the ultimate speedometer. It reveals that you are not just drifting, you are screaming through the ancient afterglow of the Big Bang. When we add up your rotation, your orbit, and the flight of your galaxy, the final number is almost impossible to process. Relative to the oldest light in the universe, you are currently moving at 2.1 million kilometers per hour. 2.1 million kilometers per hour. To humanize a number of this magnitude, you have to look at the seconds of your life. At this velocity, you are covering roughly 600 kilometers every single second. In the time it takes for your heart to beat just once, you and everything you have ever known have been thrown across a distance equivalent to the entire width of a small country. In the time it takes to blink, you have covered 600,000 meters. If you could travel at this speed on Earth, you could fly from London to New York in less than 10 seconds. Yet, as you sit there, your glass of water remains perfectly still. The local treaty of your room is so convincing that your nervous system reports zero motion, even while you traverse the void at a rate that shatters earthly stability. This is the final total sum of your motion. It is the result of your galaxy being dragged down a cosmic gravitational sinkhole toward a destination we can never see. We call this destination the Great Attractor, a gravitational leviathan hidden behind the thick dust of our own galaxy's zone of avoidance. We are essentially flying blind toward a massive hidden wall in total darkness, measuring our approach only by the way the ancient light of the Big Bang shifts around us. This is the deeper layer of the deception. We spent centuries believing the Earth was a fixed foundation, then the Sun, then the galaxy. But the CMB reveals that there is no universal parking lot. There is no place in the cosmos that is truly at rest. Everything is falling, everything is flowing, and everything is being carried by currents so vast they dwarf the stars themselves. You are a cosmic projectile moving at 600 kilometers per second, and you are only safe because the agreement of nearby things is so perfect. The air, the floor, and the walls are all falling with you, sharing the same 2.1 million kilometer per hour momentum so flawlessly that your brain labels the experience as peace. But even this ultimate speedometer is not the end of the story. Because while we are racing through the ancient light, the very space we are traveling through is beginning to change. We are not just moving through the universe is moving away from us. The room is not just a vehicle, the floor is stretching. The investigation into the tearing fabric of space-time begins in the next chapter. Chapter 8. The tearing fabric. Everything we have measured so far, the supersonic spin of the Earth, the 107,000 kilometer per hour orbital fall, and the 2.1 million kilometer per hour plunge toward the great attractor, shares a single, comforting assumption. We have treated space as if it were a fixed, passive room, a dark container through which we are traveling. But the most unsettling discovery in modern cosmology is that the room itself is changing. While you sit there believing you are merely a passenger on a cosmic projectile, the very floor beneath you is stretching, and the distance between us and the rest of reality is actively multiplying. This is confirmed science, not speculation. To understand the terrifying nature of this motion, we must abandon the idea of space as an empty hallway. Instead, you must view space as a stretching fabric, an active, physical entity that can expand, curve, and tear. While we are falling toward the great attractor at 600 kilometers per second, the universe is simultaneously pulling the destination away from us. We are caught in a cosmic tug-of-war. Gravity is trying to pull the universe together into a single point, while an invisible, mysterious pressure is trying to rip it apart. This pressure is known as dark energy. It does not shine, it cannot be felt, and it does not emit light, yet it appears to be the ultimate conductor of our cosmic fate. This is what the data says. Dark energy is not a localized force. It is an intrinsic property of space itself. Unlike matter, which thins out as it spreads, dark energy remains constant. The more space there is, the more dark energy exists, creating a vicious feedback loop that is causing the expansion of the universe to accelerate. To humanize the scale of this expansion, imagine you are a raisin inside a loaf of baking bread. As the dough rises, every raisin moves farther away from every other raisin. The raisins aren't walking through the dough, they are being carried apart because the dough between them is physically multiplying. In our reality, we are the raisins, and the vacuum of space is the dough. Every cubic meter of space in the universe is stretching, and because there is so much space between us and distant galaxies, the cumulative effect is an apocalyptic velocity. This leads to the first true complication of our motion, the speed of light loophole. You have been told your entire life that the speed of light, roughly 300,000 kilometers per second, is the ultimate speed limit of the universe. Einstein's equations firmly prohibit any object with mass from exceeding this limit as it moves through space. But those same equations contain a terrifying loophole. There is no speed limit on how far space itself can stretch. Because space is a fabric and not a road, distant galaxies are currently receding from us at speeds that shatter the light barrier. They are not breaking the laws of physics by racing through the dark. They are simply riding the expansion of the rubber sheet of reality. At a distance of roughly 14 billion light-years from Earth, space is stretching so quickly that those galaxies are moving away from us faster than light. They are effectively being carried behind a cosmic event horizon where no signal they send can ever catch up to us. This is the terror of the multiplication of space. We are not just drifting, we are being isolated. Every second, more void is created between us and the stars we see in our telescopes. The now of the deep universe is already a pitch-black, unreachable void to us. We are like passengers on a ship where the ocean is constantly growing larger, pushing every other ship beyond our horizon until we are the only lights left in a freezing, infinite dark. The mystery expands even further when we consider the ultimate end of this motion, the Big Rip. While gravity holds your room, your house, and your planet together right now, dark energy is a relentless growing pressure. In the most catastrophic models of our future, this expansion will eventually become so powerful that it will overpower gravity entirely. The rip would not just move galaxies away, it would begin to tear through the foundations of matter. First, galaxy clusters would be pulled apart. Then, star systems would be shattered as planets are flung from their orbits. Finally, the expansion would become so violent that it would tear through your very atoms, shredding the physical fabric of your body as the space between your particles multiplies faster than the forces holding them together. This is not a myth. It is a mathematical possibility derived from our current measurements of the cosmos. As you sit in your chair, feeling the floorboards beneath your feet, try to hold this image in your mind. You are not just sitting still, and you are not just flying through a void. You are part of a stretching reality that is actively abandoning the rest of existence. The distance covered by our 2.1 million kilometer per hour drift is being dwarfed by the multiplication of the void. We are inside a bubble of stability that is being frantically pushed away from everything else, leaving us in a state of absolute, permanent cosmic isolation. We have built our civilizations and made our plans while blindly trusting that the floor of the universe is a permanent, static foundation. But the floor is a tearing fabric. We are perpetual cosmic refugees, not because we chose the journey, but because the universe is refusing to let us stay where we are. And yet, there is one final layer of the deception to peel back, because even as space stretches and our velocity increases, we must confront a temporal price for this speed. Our high-speed flight does more than change our position, it changes our experience of time itself. Because we move so fast, our now is a localized hallucination, and we are literally becoming ghosts to the rest of the universe. The investigation into the relativity trap begins in the next chapter, Chapter 9, The Relativity Trap. We possess a deep, almost desperate psychological need to believe in the absolute consistency of time. From the moment you are born, you organize your entire existence around the comforting rhythm of a ticking clock. You believe that if you snap your fingers, that exact, identical second is experienced simultaneously by every other entity in the cosmos. You treat time as a master conductor, an invisible metronome governing the universe with a perfectly uniform beat. But the terrifying reality of your high-speed flight is that the universe does not possess a master clock. The rhythmic, reliable flow of time you feel right now is nothing more than a localized biological hallucination. This is confirmed science, not speculation. Time is not an independent, rigid background. It is a malleable physical dimension that is actively being warped and stretched by the violent kinetic forces of your motion. To understand the suffocating dread of this temporal price, we must first confront the only true, unyielding dictator in existence, the speed of light. In your everyday life, speed is a matter of perspective. If you are standing on a platform, a passing train looks fast. If you are on that train, the platform is what seems to be moving. But light refuses to obey this logical, comforting rule. Light travels through a vacuum at approximately 300,000 kilometers every single second, and this velocity is an absolute, non-negotiable constant. It does not matter if you are sitting still or hurtling through the dark at millions of miles per hour, a beam of light will always register at that exact same terrifying speed. This is what the data says. Because the speed of light is completely rigid, the fundamental fabrics of space and time are forced to be flexible to accommodate it. This creates the first true complication of our motion, time dilation. In the cold mechanics of reality, speed and time exist in a zero-sum game. The more speed you dedicate to moving through the void, the less speed you are permitted to use traveling through time. This is not a psychological trick, it is a literal structural distortion of reality. If you were to send a clock into the deep cosmos at an incomprehensible speed and then bring it back, that clock would have physically ticked fewer seconds than the one you left on your table. As you sit in your chair right now, you are living inside a localized temporal bubble. Because the Earth is spinning, orbiting, and plunging through the galaxy at over 2 million kilometers per hour. Your seconds are physically ticking at a slower rate than they would be if the Earth were truly at rest. You are a passenger on a moving clock, caught in a temporal wake that separates your experience of now from the vacuum of space. But this temporal trap is not just about how fast your watch ticks, it is about the total collapse of simultaneity. Because light takes time to travel, the universe strictly forbids you from seeing the present. When you look at the stars, you are not looking at a live broadcast, you are peering into a sprawling, silent graveyard. Every point of light you see tonight is nothing more than a ghost. The sun you feel on your skin is a ghost from 8 minutes ago. The brilliant star Sirius is a phantom from nearly 9 years in the past. The Andromeda Galaxy, our closest major neighbor, is a smudge of light that has been traveling for 2.5 million years. When the photons you see from Andromeda tonight first began their journey, human beings did not even exist. Our ancestors were primitive, ape-like creatures just beginning to walk upright on the plains of Africa. This creates an agonizing existential beat. We are ghosts to the rest of the universe. If an advanced civilization in Andromeda were to point a telescope at Earth right now, they would not see your cities, your cars, or your face. They would see those ape-like ancestors wandering a wild, untamed planet. To them, the entirety of human recorded history has not happened yet. We could be screaming into the dark for companionship, but because of the rigid, uncaring speed limit of light, no one will hear us for millions of years. We are all trapped in our own isolated, delayed realities, hopelessly out of synchronization with the rest of existence. The concept of a simultaneous now across the cosmos is a physical impossibility. This is the relativity trap. The faster we move and the further we look, the more we realize that our now is a localized hallucination. We are navigating our world by the light of celestial corpses, completely blind to what the universe actually looks like in this precise, terrifying second. This leaves us with an honest uncertainty that shadows every measurement we have made. We have charted the expansion of space and the violent trajectory of our galaxy, but we must admit that we are only observing history. The universe as it exists right now is completely invisible to us. We are hurtling through the dark at 600 kilometers per second, measuring our progress against ancient light, yet we remain permanently quarantined within our own tiny pocket of time. You are not a master of your trajectory, and you are not a participant in a universal present. You are a ghost in a temporal bubble, falling through a void that refuses to let you see where you are, only where you used to be. While this realization might feel like the ultimate isolation, it is the necessary bridge to our final destination. We have measured the spin, the fall, the drift, and the stretch of the void. Now we must return to the only frame that truly remains, the room where you began. The investigation is nearing its end, and the final beat is not about the speed of the stars, but about the meaning of home inside the motion. The final reflection on the local treaty of our existence begins in the next chapter. Chapter 10. Home inside the motion. Now, return your attention to the room you are sitting in. Lift your hand from the table and then press it back down, feeling the grain of the wood or the coolness of the surface. It feels as firm and as permanent as it did when we began this investigation. In your mind, the numbers we have discussed, the 1,670 km per hour spin, the 107,000 km per hour fall, and the 2.1 million km per hour galactic plunge, might feel like they belong to another world. But those numbers are not happening out there. They are happening exactly where you are sitting. To live as a human being is to exist in a state of constant high-speed travel that your body is physically incapable of feeling. This is confirmed science, not speculation. The most unsettling discovery of this journey is that your sense of rest is not a report on the state of the universe, it is a biological hallucination. Your brain has spent your entire life editing out the 600 km per second rush of the cosmos to keep you from becoming paralyzed by the sheer chaotic velocity of the void. But as we conclude this investigation, we find a different kind of truth. The stillness you feel is not a lie, but it is not what you thought it was. It is a local treaty of shared motion. Inside this room, everything has signed the same contract. The chair moves with the floor moves with the planet, and the atmosphere moves with the ground. You do not feel the rotation or the orbit because there is no disagreement between your body and its environment. Stillness, in the context of physics, is simply the absence of disagreement. When you and the room agree on the same 2.1 million km per hour momentum, the universe goes silent. This agreement is what allows human life to exist. If that treaty were to be broken for even a microsecond, if the ground stopped while the air kept moving, the result would be instantaneous global annihilation. We survive only because the machine of the solar system never skips a gear and never hits a cosmic pothole. We are not being dragged through space as reluctant captives, we are being carried. This is what the data shows. You are carried by the Earth's rotation, just as every object in the room is carried. You are carried by the sun's motion through the galaxy, along with every grain of dust bound to our star. You are a passenger on a journey that requires no effort from you and asks for no permission. The universe is not a highway you are driving down. It is a cascading series of nested frames, and you are at the center of the only one that feels like home. We often imagine that home must be a place of absolute rest, a fixed coordinate we can return to year after year. But we have seen that those fixed coordinates do not exist. The space you occupied a minute ago is now thousands of kilometers behind you, permanently abandoned in the irradiated wake of our flight. You are a perpetual cosmic refugee, constantly breaking into new, uncharted territory at a velocity that defies human sanity. The horror we felt at the beginning of this investigation, the existential vertigo of realizing we are unanchored, begins to resolve into a deeper kind of wonder. We realize that stability does not require the absence of motion. A planet can rotate without losing its oceans. A star can carry worlds through a galaxy while children learn to walk under its light. Home was never the absence of motion. Home is motion made livable. Your nervous system was never designed to sense the 230 million year lap of the galaxy, and that is not a flaw. It is a mercy. It was built to feel the footstep on the grass, and the weight of a child in your arms. Biology is practical. It has given you a small, usable world where you can stand, walk, and dream, while science has given you the extensions to see the staggering truth that the body misses. As you sit there now, try to hold both truths at once. The floor is solid, and the floor is a moving surface. Your heartbeat is steady, and your heartbeat is a small rhythm inside a planetary rotation, a solar orbit, and a galactic drift. You are a local creature inside a non-local story. We are a species that has learned to coordinate our lives by reading the consequences of motions we cannot feel. We turned the Earth's rotation into the day and its orbit into the year. We have turned the terrifying velocity of the void into the rhythms of our memory. We have built civilizations on a moving stage, trusting the silent, uncaring mechanics of gravity to keep the floor beneath us from tearing apart. The investigation ends here, in the room where it began. The chair remains under you, the glass of water is still calm, and the walls have not moved, but the frame around the chair has grown wider and wider until the old feeling of rest has become something more delicate and more profound. You are not sitting in a static room. You are part of an ordered harmony inside a moving hierarchy. You are traveling at 2.1 million kilometers per hour through the ancient afterglow of the Big Bang, protected by a natural warp shield and carried by a star that is clearing your path through the dark. This is your reality. It is a state of constant, apocalyptic motion that feels like a quiet evening. You are part of the carried world, a speck of consciousness noticing the ride. It is a journey that will never pause for a respite and never offer a final station to dock at. You are falling through the dark, and you will never ever stop